The indigo, it wasn't just a color. It was a sound, a vibration. It was the deepest part of a sigh or the hum of the earth before it was anything. And the emerald, oh God, the emerald. It pulsed like a heartbeat, a slow, steady rhythm that somehow felt familiar, like something I'd forgotten I knew. It shimmered, not like light on water, but like light inside the water, all liquid and alive. And then there was this gold, not harsh, not blinding, but a soft, warm gold that felt like it was hugging me, like the first sun after a long, brutal winter, but everywhere at once. It wasn't coming from a source, you know? It was just there, this glow, this luminescence that was part of everything. Like the air itself was made of it. And the silence, it wasn't empty. It was so full, so resonant. It was like being inside a giant bell that had just been struck, but the sound never faded. It just was peaceful. But then sometimes there were these chimes, like distant wind bells, so delicate you'd think you imagined them. But they were real, and they carried this sense of inevitability. Like things just are. I felt this warmth, not like a blanket or a fire. It was bigger, like being held by something ancient and impossibly vast, but gentle. And all the weight I'd been carrying, all the knots in my stomach, the tightness in my chest, it just dissolved. Poof, gone. No more fear, no more regret. Just this belonging. Like I'd finally come home. And it was perfect. It wasn't about being judged or earning anything. It was just accepted. Like I was always supposed to be there. And for the first time in my life, I felt lighter. Truly, completely free. It's like words fail me, honestly. I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't a color I've ever seen. It was more like color as a feeling. A profound sense of peace washed over me, so intense it was almost overwhelming. I remember thinking, this is it. This is real. And then I woke up. Yeah, I know. Sounds pretty out there, right? Me? Dave. David Rodriguez. Most folks just call me Dave. 62 years young or old, depending on how I feel. For the last 30 years, I've been a commercial deep sea welder. That's right, 30 years. Down in the dark, miles below the surface, welding on these monster oil rig platforms. It's a good living, pays the bills. Pays them real well, actually. But it ain't exactly a desk job, you know? It's demanding. You gotta be focused every damn second. My mornings, they were pretty much the same. Alarm goes off at 4 a.m., drag myself out of bed, coffee, black, no sugar, always black. Stare out the window while the coffee brewed. Usually it was still dark, maybe a sliver of moon if I was lucky. And I'd think about the job, about the pressure, about the money, about how much longer I had to do it. That was the big one, you know, how much longer? My knees weren't what they used to be. My back was a mess. The constant fear of something going wrong, something stupid, a faulty valve, a bad connection. That was my real worry. Not ghosts, not spirits, just concrete, tangible stuff. See, I'm what you'd call a radical skeptic, a dyed-in-the-wool atheist. I didn't believe in anything I couldn't touch, couldn't measure. When you're dead, you're dead. That's it, end of story. No pearly gates, no fiery pits, just nothing. And honestly, that was fine by me. It made things simpler, less to worry about, in the grand scheme of things. My daughter, Maria, we haven't spoken in 5 years. 5 years. That's a long time. We had a blow-up, a real bad one. She was going her own way, making choices I didn't understand, didn't approve of. I told her. She told me. And then, silence. Radio silence. It's a hole, you know? A big empty space where a father-daughter relationship used to be. I figured she'd find her way. She's a smart girl. Tough. Just like her dad. Just the week before. Before everything. I was on the rig. We were running diagnostics on a new pump system. Just routine stuff. I remember looking at the digital readout, a series of green numbers blinking. I was thinking about getting that leaky faucet in the kitchen fixed when I got back. Seemed so inconsequential now. A leaky faucet. Little things. That's all life is, right? Little things that you don't even notice until they're gone. Or until something else happens. Can you describe the feeling of being a skeptic leading up to that moment? It's like a sturdy house. You build it brick by brick. You test the foundation. You know what holds it up. And you're damn sure it's going to stand. It's not about being angry or mean. It's just reality. The way things are. And I was comfortable in that house. Real comfortable. Didn't need any other explanations. Didn't want any. So imagine my surprise when the walls came tumbling down. Or, well, not tumbling. More like dissolving into color and warmth. Weird, huh? Looking back now, of course, I can see it like a little crack in the foundation I mentioned. Back then, nah. I chalked it up to the usual grind. You know, long hours, the pressure, the damn fog rolling in thick enough to chew. But there were little things, tiny little flags I completely ignored. There was this one night, just a couple of days before the incident. I was on the rig, late shift. We had some new monitoring equipment installed, and it was acting up, throwing out these weird error codes. Nothing serious, just a glitch in the system, the text said. But as I was staring at the flickering display, I swear I saw my daughter's face in the static for a second. Just a flash. Maria, clear as day. I blinked and it was gone. Just the blinking red lights. I remember shaking my head, thinking, Dave, you're working too damn hard. You need some sleep. I thought I was just tired. Really tired. Must have been the caffeine wearing off or something. And then there was this dream, I guess you could call it. It wasn't like my usual dreams, which are usually about tools malfunctioning or me forgetting to lock down a valve. This one was different. I was walking through this field. Soft grass, but it felt like silk under my feet. And the sky, it was this impossible shade of purple, like a bruised twilight that just went on forever. And I heard this song. Not music, exactly. More like a feeling, a resonance. It felt like home. And for some reason in the dream, I was looking for something. Or someone. I couldn't quite place it, but there was this deep, quiet ache of longing. When I woke up, the feeling lingered for a while. That sense of looking for something I couldn't name. I just brushed it off as stress. My mind playing tricks on me. What else could it be, right? A skeptic's mind doesn't wander into fantasy land. It deals with what's real, tangible, concrete. Not fields of silk grass and songs you can feel. Did you have any sense, looking back, that something was coming? Not a clue. Not even a whisper. I was so locked into my routine, my way of seeing the world. My house was built, solid as a rock. I never once considered that the ground beneath it might be shifting. Does that make sense? It's like when you're on the surface of the ocean and the water is calm. You don't think about the currents, the sheer depth, the immense power lurking below. You just see the sun, feel the breeze. That was me. So sure of my own solid footing, so completely oblivious to what was about to pull me under. It was November 14th, 2031, 3:15 in the damn morning. The usual suspects. Fog so thick it felt like you could get a haircut in it, and the sea just churning. Always churning out there. I was on the North Star platform, deep in the Gulf. My job, welding the guts of these monsters, keeping them from leaking oil into the only thing we've got left. I was tightening up a joint on a subsea conduit. Just finished a beer from my thermos, the lukewarm, bitter kind that gets you through the night shift. The air down there, in the welding bay, it's always a cocktail of ozone and salt, heavy and damp. You can taste the metal, feel the war, vibrations of the rig humming through your boots. It's a familiar symphony, usually. I remember the cold, even through my insulated gear. Not a biting cold, but a deep bone marrow chill that the constant mist seemed to amplify. The only light came from my helmet's beam, cutting through the gloom, glinting off the wet metal. The rhythmic hiss of my welding torch was the loudest thing, a fierce dragon breathing fire. Then it happened. It wasn't a gradual thing. It was instantaneous. A violent jolt, like being hit by a freight train, but inside my own body. Electricity. It ripped through me, a searing, metallic taste filling my mouth, overwhelming everything else. Sparks, man, they were everywhere, like a violent, deadly fireworks show right in front of my eyes. My muscles seized, locked up tighter than a politician's promise. In that split second, before the darkness truly took over, before everything went silent, I knew. There was no doubt, no fear, just this cold, stark, absolute certainty. I was dying. It wasn't a question, it was a fact, like the tide coming in. You don't argue with the tide. My entire life, my entire being, flashed before me not as a movie, but as a series of impressions. The bitter taste of coffee on a Monday morning, the rough texture of a welding glove, the sharp scent of hydraulic fluid. And then Maria. Just a flicker. Her face, younger, smiling. The last thing I felt before I wasn't feeling anymore, was this strange sensation of my own body just giving up, like a machine powering down. The sound of the torch, the roar of the sea, it all seemed to recede, to get muffled, as if I was sinking into thick velvet. There was a brief, almost disorienting stillness. Then, a warmth, a gentle warmth that felt like being wrapped in a blanket made of pure sunshine. Hank, my supervisor, he found me. I saw it later in the reports. He said he heard this terrible crackle, like a live wire in a puddle. Then he saw the sparks. He said he called out my name, yelled for help, but I was already gone, floating. It's wild to think about. Hank, bless his heart, he must have been a wreck. Trying to pull me away, probably terrified himself, knowing what that kind of jolt means. They told me later, after they brought me back, that I was clinically dead for 4 minutes and 15 seconds. 4 minutes and 15 seconds. Enough time for the world to forget I was even there. Enough time for something else to find me. It wasn't a fade, not like the sun going down or a light bulb burning out. It was more like being unzipped. Yeah, that's it. Imagine your whole existence, your body, your thoughts, your memories, all zipped up tight inside this suit of skin and bone. And then suddenly, someone just pulls the zipper down. Not violently, not tearing, just a smooth, effortless unzipping. And then you're free. But that's not right either. It felt like I was the zipper, or the pull tab, or the very act of unzipping. It was a process of becoming undone, but not in a bad way. More like unraveling, like a tightly wound ball of yarn finally getting to stretch out. Except the yarn was me. And then the yarn just dissolved, became part of something else. The first thing I noticed, before I even knew what noticed was the silence. But it wasn't an empty silence. It was a silence that felt full, like the quiet right before a storm, but without the tension. It was resonant, like the inside of a giant bell that had just been struck, but the sound was so deep, so low, it wasn't something you heard with your ears, but with your whole body. It vibrated through me. And then came the warmth. Oh man, the warmth. It wasn't like a heater or a fire or even the sun. It was like being held. Held by something impossibly vast and ancient, but in a way that was so gentle, so comforting. Like a mother's embrace, but on a cosmic scale. There was no weight, no pressure, just this perfect, all-encompassing warmth that seeped into every atom of my being. It felt like coming home, but a home I never knew, I'd lost, and the colors, whoa. It started with this deep, deep indigo. Not like the night sky, but richer, more saturated. And then, swirling within that indigo were these veins of emerald green, shimmering, pulsating emerald. And beneath it all, this soft, pulsating gold. It wasn't a light source, not like a lamp or a star. It was more like luminescence. Everything glowed from within, a liquid light that seemed to flow through everything. It made the indigo richer, the emerald more vibrant. It was like seeing the world through a stained glass window made of pure energy. And the feeling, that's the hard part to describe. It was like being perfectly understood without having to say a word, a profound sense of belonging. All the clutter in my head, all the worries, all the regret, just gone, washed away, replaced by this overwhelming sense of peace. It was like taking off a heavy coat you didn't even realize you were wearing, and suddenly you can breathe freely. And then there was a presence. Not a person, not an angel, not anything I could put a label on. It was just there, and it felt familiar. Not in a way I'd met them before, but in a way that resonated with the deepest part of me. Like a forgotten melody you suddenly hear, and your soul just knows the tune. There was no judgment, no expectation, just recognition. I remember a feeling, a sense of gentle inquiry, like a soft breeze nudging you to look closer. It wasn't a voice I heard, but a knowing, a sudden, profound awareness that this presence was love, pure, unadulterated love. And it knew me. It knew all of me. Every rough edge, every mistake, every hidden hurt. And it didn't flinch. It just accepted. What was the message? Can you say it out loud? The message, it came as a knowing. Not spoken words, but like a download, a complete understanding that bloomed in my mind. It was about Maria, my daughter. The message was, your daughter chose her path, and it led her to a quiet joy you never understood. She remembers your strength, not your anger. That's it. Simple, yet profound. I'd spent years being angry, being disappointed. I thought she'd thrown her life away, but she hadn't. She'd found her own kind of happiness, a happiness that I, in my rigid black and white worldview, had failed to see. And the part about her remembering my strength, not my anger, that hit me like a ton of bricks. All the yelling, all the bitterness, it was all I thought she'd remember. But she saw something else, something good. I remember, just for a second, seeing myself. Not like a flashback, but like I was watching a scene unfold from a distance. It was me, younger, on the rig, showing Maria how to tie a proper knot. She was maybe 7 or 8. I was being patient, explaining it carefully. She was so focused, her tongue sticking out a little. I'd completely forgotten that moment. It was so small, so insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but in that moment, it felt like everything. It was the strength she remembered, the quiet, steady strength of a father teaching his child. When I came back, well, it was like waking up from the most vivid dream you've ever had, but the dream was real, and the waking world felt dulled. Everything was a little less vibrant. A little less there. It took me a while to even process what happened, but that message about Maria, it stuck with me. It changed everything. I knew I couldn't keep living like I was. Welding that life, it felt hollow. So I quit, packed up my gear, cashed out what I could, and I moved closer to where Maria lives. I haven't seen her in years, not since that last big fight, but I'm writing her letters, just simple stuff about what I'm seeing, what I'm thinking. No pressure, no demands, just reaching out, trying to build a bridge. And the weirdest thing, the one thing that still happens, is my watches. They just stop. Every single one I've owned since coming back. They'll be ticking away, and then, out of nowhere, they just freeze. Like time itself can't quite keep up with me. And then there was a pull. Not like the gentle unraveling before. This was a yank. A rough, insistent tugging that felt like it was trying to drag me back into something I just escaped. It was like being on a beautiful, sun-drenched beach, breathing in the cleanest air you could imagine, and suddenly a giant, muddy boot is trying to stomp you back into the muck. I didn't want to go. Not at all. Everything in me, the real me, the part that had finally understood what belonging felt like, was screaming, "No, leave me here." But it wasn't a choice I could make. It was like being caught in a cosmic undertow, and no matter how hard I fought, the current was stronger. The message about Maria, that was the tether, I think. The reason I was even considered to be pulled back. She remembers your strength, not your anger. That was the hook, the thing that made me hesitate, even for a fraction of a second, about just letting go. But honestly, in that moment, the desire to stay was overwhelming. Then the sensation of coming back. Oh God. It was like being shoved headfirst into a block of ice that was also on fire. Heavy, so incredibly heavy. My body felt like lead, and every nerve ending was screaming. It was cold, a deep, bone-chilling cold that was the polar opposite of the warmth I'd just experienced. And the noise. It was like 1,000 jackhammers going off right next to my ears, mixed with a roaring in the background that just wouldn't quit. My own body was making these horrible gurgling sounds like a choked drain. It was all so violent, so jarring. I felt like I was being physically ripped apart and then crudely stitched back together. My eyes snapped open, and the first thing I saw was the fluorescent lights of the med bay. Harsh, brutally harsh. They were blinding after the soft luminescence I'd been bathed in, and the colors, everything was so muted, so dull. The vibrant emerald, the deep indigo, the soft gold, all gone, replaced by this sterile white and pale blue. And the weight. My God, the weight. My arms felt like they were filled with concrete. I tried to lift my hand, and it was like trying to move a mountain. Every breath felt like a struggle, like I was dragging something impossibly heavy into my lungs. Then I heard it, a voice. "Dave, Dave, can you hear me?" It was Hank, my supervisor. His voice sounded distorted, like it was coming from underwater. He was leaning over me, his face a blur of concern. "Easy now, Dave. You took a bad one, but you're back." Back. The word felt foreign, wrong. I wanted to tell him that I wasn't back. I was just occupying this shell again. This heavy, cold, noisy shell. I tried to speak, but all that came out was a dry rasp, like sandpaper scraping against bone. My mouth tasted like pennies and burnt metal, and I had to fight the urge to gag. The whole world felt wrong. Everything was too much, too loud, too bright, too heavy. It was like being thrust back into a poorly made play where all the props were too big and the actors were yelling their lines. The separation. That was the biggest thing. Before, I was connected to everything. Now, I was just here. A single, isolated point in a sea of disconnectedness. You know, it's funny. For years, I'd prided myself on being tough, on being able to handle anything the sea threw at me. But after that experience, Hauling myself out of bed felt like a full day's work. And the watches? Yeah, they still do that. Just freeze. Like time itself decided it couldn't be bothered with this particular reality anymore. I was in the hospital for about 10 days, I think. Hank came by every day looking worried, but he mostly just sat there, not saying much. My daughter, Maria, she was the one I expected to not show up. After 5 years of silence, after the shouting matches and the slammed doors, why would she? But she did. She showed up on the third day. She looked different, softer, worn, but in a way that made her seem more real than I remembered. We didn't talk much, just small stuff. The weather, how the get hospital food was. She brought me a book, some stupid romance novel I would have scoffed at before. I didn't even open it, just kept it on the bedside table. But she stayed for an hour, just present. That was the hardest part, seeing her and knowing I'd messed it all up. When I got out, everything felt heavy, like I was walking through mud. The world was still too loud, too bright. The smell of the welding shop, the constant thrum of the machinery. It all felt like an assault. I went back for a day, Hank insisted. Said I needed to tie up loose ends, get my final pay. I stood there, in my old rig clothes, the familiar scent of ozone and burnt metal in the air. My buddies, the guys I'd spent half my life with, came over, clapped me on the back. "Glad to see you back from the brink, Dave," one of them said, laughing. "You going to write a book now, old man?" I just shook my head. I couldn't. I couldn't even articulate what had happened. It was like trying to describe color to someone born blind. So I quit, just walked away. Told Hank I was done. He looked surprised, but he's a good man, understood more than I expected, said he'd have my back if I needed anything. I rented a small place, not too far from where Maria lives now. It's quiet, too quiet sometimes, but it's a different kind of quiet than the one I felt out there. This one is empty. I started writing letters, not emails, not texts, actual old-fashioned letters. Pen on paper. The first few were awful, stilted, full of apologies I didn't know how to really mean yet. I'd write a sentence, then cross it out, then start again. Sometimes I'd get halfway through, feeling like I was finally getting it right, and then I'd remember the anger, the bitter words, and the pen would just stop. I'd crumple it up and toss it in the wastebasket, feeling that old weight settle back in. It took me weeks to write the first one that I actually mailed. It was short, just thinking of you. Hope you're well, Dad. That's it. No expectations, no demands, just a simple acknowledgement of her existence. It's funny about the watches, they still do it. I'm wearing my old diver's watch right now. See? Stopped. It's been stuck at 4:15 a.m. for the last 3 weeks. I've tried everything. New batteries, different bands, nothing works. It's like a little piece of that other place came back with me, a constant reminder that time here, it's not quite the same. It's a small thing, I know, but it's real. I go for walks by the river now. Used to think fishing was for old men with too much time on their hands. Now I find myself just watching the water, looking for things, smooth stones, the way the light hits the ripples. Sometimes I'll see a kingfisher dive, a flash of iridescent blue. And I don't think about welding. I don't think about the dark. I just see the bird. And for a moment, that's enough. I'm learning to be okay with enough. It's a slow process. It takes a lot of patience, more patience than I ever thought I possessed. One afternoon, I was sitting by the river, and a little girl, maybe 6 or 7, dropped her brightly colored ball. It rolled right to my feet. Without even thinking, I picked it up. As I handed it back to her, she looked up at me, her eyes wide and trusting. "Thank you," she chirped, and then she ran off, laughing. I just watched her go, and then I looked down at my hands. They were dirty, calloused, but for the first time in a long time, they felt like they belonged to me.